All right, so hi, this is Ron Sousa with the Comeback Trail, and I've got a special guest here with me this evening. Good buddy of mine, Eric Kingsley, who I've known for quite some time, and um, basically, this Eric's gonna be my first interview. We're going to talk about hope tonight, and and touch on Eric's faith and how he's overcome a lot of obstacles in his life. That being said, Eric, tell us about yourself. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I mean, so far so good. I would say Hakuna Matata these days. I made it through a lot in life, made it to middle age. Sometimes I wonder how I got to that point, but where I'm at now is I've recently found Christ. Fairly recently. It was a couple of years ago. I actually got baptized. Funny enough, is when I got baptized, I thought my life would get better. And it just seemed like things got crazier, almost like I was just, things just came at me from different directions,
It's a pretty interesting thing. I hear that a lot. When people get baptized, they definitely get what they call spiritual attack. It's something it's a very real thing. It's happened to myself. It's happened to pretty much everybody I know who's become a believer, and they just kind of things get a little weird before they fortunately this I was kind of forewarned, and I try to tell people, hey, be on your guard when you do get baptized, and expect things to get a little crazy at first, because the enemy definitely attacks. He's not very happy when you've gone over to the light side, so to speak.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I got baptized on my own accord, right? I don't really know the pastor or anything like that. They just said they do baptisms once a month,
Right.
when they announced it, and I just went and did it, and nobody told me that, and I didn't know. And after it got done, things got crazy in my life. I was never tempted more than that I was tempted before, and I'll be honest with you, I gave in to the temptations, but it was very
That happens a
chaotic.
lot. That happens a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, looking back, it made me realize, man, maybe there is something out there that we can't explain, that something like that would happen, because we live in a culture, I think, especially in Western modern culture today, where there's a huge emphasis on motivational speakers and all that, people like Anthony Robbins and all that. And I feel like that's kind of morphed over into the Christian world. Like, pastors have kind of taken on the helm of being
Yeah,
motivational speakers.
prosperity Christianity.
Right.
It's all, yeah. And that is, and it's all about self. It's all about it's completely the opposite of what Christianity is supposed to be. It's being a Christian. It's supposed to be you know you're trying to fulfill God's purpose on this world, and these guys are kind of warping it into how can it benefit me,
And I feel like a lot of people don't know, when you accept Christ, things will probably get tougher for you.
They do.
And a lot
In
of
many
people,
instances, I mean, I can't say that for everybody, but I know for myself it did, and for many
at
people
least
that I know.
initially, at
Yeah.
least
Oh, yeah.
initially it did.
Yeah. Initially, at first, yeah. It's something
Yeah.
you're gonna kind of weather the storm. Just batten down the hatches and expect it.
Yeah. It's, I would say accepting Christ, based on my experience, is not for the faint-hearted. You really got to know what you're getting into. And I didn't. I thought I did, but I didn't. You know what I mean?
But you made it through.
Yeah, I did. But the thing is that, looking back, I felt like my life was easier when I was a child of the dark. I was lost, and I knew I had a sense of emptiness, but I felt the illusion of feeling like I was more in control of things. And
Right.
then when I accepted Christ and I did that baptism, it's serious businthis at that point. That's what, honestly, in my experience, I feel like that's what separates the men from the boys, right there.
He's ticked off. He's just lost one of his servants. He wants you back. And once you've made that step, he's gonna I mean, you look at people in society that seem like they've got everything going for them and whatnot. You wonder, how is this happening? Of course, he's gonna leave them alone. They're already doing his bidding. Why would he have to interfere with that? You know what I mean? But you got somebody like you who was, a poster child for him there for a while, and then, you were like, his perfect specimen, and all of a sudden you switch tracks on him. He's like, oh man, I got to get this guy back.
Oh yeah. Or it's almost like maybe he felt betrayed in a way.
Yeah, I'm sure he was ticked off, angry.
Yeah. So for me, my transition to as accepting Christ, it was not an easy one. And any of your viewers who are watching this who haven't accepted Christ, it's serious stuff. And do not be under the illusion that if you get baptized and you accept Christ, even if you're going through a bad period in life, that all of a sudden it'll be all roses and peaches and cream. Like I guess a lot of the prosperity preachers that you mentioned, almost
Right.
they pander that notion. And I think a lot of that
that I think is false Christianity. I mean, I hate to, put something in a box like that, but that's not what Christianity is about at all. And I mean, I'll tell you, from my own perspective, I've been a Christian for a long time, but I've really gotten a lot closer to the Lord in the last, probably 6, 7, 8 years. I've gotten, really kind of gotten my stripes, so to speak. And you know my story. You know a lot of the things that I've been through, and my faith has actually been built as a result of that. And I will say that at this point in my life, I mean, I'm not going to say nothing ever goes wrong. These things go wrong all the time, but it's how you handle it. I feel like now at this point in my life, even when things get thrown my way, I'm able to handle it more joyfully. I'm not, I'm not angry. Why is this happening to me? Blah 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 blah. I know what's going on. And I just just kind of roll with the punches, and I just, I just give everything give everything to God. I give Him full control. It's through my weakness that His strength shines. And that's what I think you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, and the thing is to just kind of drive the point home a little bit. If you think about it, Christianity, of course, we know has been around for 2,000 years. The United States is only, and under our capitalistic system that has given us a great amount of prosperity and abundance that we've never had before, ever.
Right.
Most Christians, so we've only been around for like over 200 years, not long at all. Most Christians prior to the United States ever existing have lived under some form of dictatorship. And I think that the fact that we are kind of in a sweet spot to be Christians in such a prosperous nation, I don't know about now, but hopefully things are turning around. But I think that gives people the notion that has given fertile ground to a lot of these prosperity preachers that if they accept Christ and get baptized or pray to Him, that things will turn around and you'll get rich or you'll be more prosperous. And most Christians in the history of Christendom have lived under persecution.
Christians in China are a perfect example. As Christianity in China is probably the most number of Christians in a civilization in the entire world right now, and they're all living under persecution. They're very much meeting in dark alleys and that sort of thing. It's not like here. You can't be out in the open about it. About your faith.
Yeah. So I think it's like we have to understand that as slaves of Christ, as the Apostle Paul puts it. That we're gonna when you accept Jesus into your life, you gotta be prepared for warfare. This is not a faith for the faint-hearted. It really isn't. And I've learned that. And learning to rejoice in these persecutions is something that I am working on, because I myself was like many people that believed if I just turn to Jesus, things will get better. And I will be. And it's not that they don't. They do get better. It's a different kind of better. Exactly. It's not in the I'm going to get wealthy. I'm the things that turn around, But what I have found that God has slowly but surely been guiding my feet, like a little lamp at the feet, like they say in the scriptures.
That's right. That's right.
In a way where I am useful, but in a different way. Like before, it was all about making money. I thought money was the answer to everything because I grew up with very little. And,
Right.
We'll get into that. I'll let you kind of lead us into that. And when I thought I made money, my life became even more hollow. Okay.
Right.
The thing about it is as a trauma survivor, when you don't have anything, you figure, okay, if I have money, my life will be happier. And
the thing is, a lot of people equate money to freedom.
Right. And the thing is what happens is when I finally got money, it revealed who it only gave my sinful nature and my trauma.
A slave to it.
Yes, and it allowed me to be an even bigger sinner.
Right.
Okay, and even it was not a fix all. It left me empty. And the thing is when you turn yourself over to Christ, I felt that okay, I may not have the material abundance I have, but I'm being led little by little in a different path where I am useful in a much, much more meaningful way.
Much more meaningful and important way. Absolutely.
And that meaningful way for me is that I can do film, I can do editing, I can do things that are for him, that are in line with him. He's given me gifts. He gave me the gift to be able to talk and be able to articulate. He gives us all gifts when we're born. We all have our individual gifts. The thing is most of us, as being children of darkness before we accept Christ, we use those gifts that are given to us to serve our selfish ends.
Our worldly desires.
Yeah, our worldly desires. I learned that in recovery. It doesn't mean, so for example, am I working out because I want to be Bobby Beautiful and be more sexually attractive to women? Or do I want to be Bobby, or do I want to look good so I can have the strength to get up every day and do God's will, whether it's serving, helping others, lifting more than 50 pounds, using these gifts to be able to do that
right
in that way, rather than trying to be Bobby Beautiful because I want to attract women so I can, give into my temptations. So
right.
That I think is what's paramount. Your gifts are not a bad thing. It's just how we use them. It's how we use those gifts in the end. And when I accepted Christ, now I could see that. I've been given that discernment. So
God's giving you the discernment to see what He gave you and what the actual purpose is for it.
Exactly. And I want to, rich or poor, I want to do His will. I want to lead as many people to Christ as possible. Because at the end of the day, Ron, if you don't have God, who do you got?
Got nothing.
You got nothing. Me? All the bad, with my track record and all the bad decisions I've made growing up, am I going to be left in charge of my life? Nah. Sorry, it hasn't worked, and it's got to go to Him. He's the only one, because I can't be in control, because I'm flesh. I'm a flawed human being. I'm a fallen person. You
and me both, bro. You and me both. I've been a Christian a lot longer than you, and believe me, I've been screwing up for a long time. I've definitely gotten better in my later years. I mean, I'm closing in on 59 years old. It's taking me this long, and I'm still a flawed human being, and I still make mistakes every day. But I'd like to think that, that Christ is constantly remaking me. It's kind of like the story of the potter and the clay. He keeps on, he'll make me, and there's an imperfection. He'll break me into dust again, and just kind of keep reshaping me until he gets me right. And I guess, when I'm finally right is going to be when he takes me home, at that point. But, up until, for now, he just keeps on working with me, and he's patient with me. I wouldn't be patient with me. I'm not even patient with myself. I get aggravated with myself. So I can't imagine how he can stand me, but he does, Mm-hmm. And with that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit about your past and how you've come to be the Eric that I know and love. Well, I've known you as both Erics, so
Exactly. You knew the Eric that would walk up and down the call center, hail Satan, and all that
Right.
stuff. I don't know if you remember all that, but all those days. And the thing of a lot of it is, I remember I used to make you guys in the call center laugh, but I'm sure we've all heard the phrase "the sad clown,"
right?
And that's really what was going on. I was a broken person, and how I got to this point is I came from total chaos,
right.
And the kind of chaos that you hear about on the local news or the Law and Crime Network or whatever true crime you want to hear from. You get that kind of content from. I came from that kind of background. I was physically, emotionally, and essayed abused. We're on YouTube, so I don't want your channel to get smited by the YouTube gods, if you will. But the thing about it is without making a long story short, the thing is my perpetrator was my own mother. And that was a hard thing for me to grapple with, because most people, when they are abused in that manner, the ultimate betrayal, if you will, traditionally, or at least it's more voiced, it's women at the hands of a man, whether it's a relative or not. It's usually not the case for men to be violated in that way by their own mother. It's not the case, because you don't.
That's not as common, for sure. Yeah.
No, and the thing is you don't expect, because you expect your mother to be the nurturing one. A lot of times, it's like, if it is the father that's doing it, the mother might enable it, but when it's your own mother and that's your only parent, because I never knew my father, it's bad. And, like I said, it destroyed a lot of my potential, because a lot of it happened when I was 8 years old. It's when it started. I think it happened before that, but that's when I became consciously aware of it. And I knew something was off. And you know what? As I grew into a teenager and a young adult, I was very promiscuous, and that's usually a side effect for people.
I've seen that. Yeah,
very promiscuous, and I'm not proud of it at all. The thing is I felt like I've cheapened myself. I felt like I was conned by this world, that if I could get as much play as I could, that life will be better and I could be more, my merit will mean something. I'm a man and all that stuff, but I'm not proud of it at all. And the thing is I knew something happened to me as a child in that fashion. I just wrestled with it. It was almost like whenever I was growing up, recounting those moments where those incidents occurred, it was a part of my psyche that would step in and go, "Hey, Eric, that wasn't what you thought it was. Change the subject." And I'd take a smoke, I'd drink something or whatever, or, distract myself, and I would change the subject and I wouldn't think about it. This went on for many, 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 many years, until I was about 25. I was chilling out with my friend Jennifer, who also was violated in the same manner. So we shared that. We both came from traumatic backgrounds. She's a good friend of mine. She's like a sister. And we were sitting there, we were smoking our thing, we were watching Jay and Silent Bob, the Kevin Smith movies.
Right.
Those.
Sure.
And after it was over with, I don't know if it was the cannabis, but we were doing so much of it that it put me in a state of mind where it made me reflect on those moments while I was sitting there. We were just chilling. And I looked over, I said, "Hey, Jen, I think I was SA'd as a child by my mother." And I elaborated a little bit more with her, and I told her that I wrestle with it because there's a part of my mind that tells me to change the subject, that's almost kind of gaslighting me into thinking that's not what you thought it was. And her being through the mental health system as much as she has, because she was violated as a preteen, she was in and out of mental institutions, she could practically run those places. She looked at me and she said, "Eric, that's PTSD. When you have a part of your mind that's trying to stop that,
Sure.
thing. That's PTSD straight up, And so knowing that, it wasn't liberating, because then there was this resentment. Now I realize what happened. And my mother was alive for many, many, many years after that. And I always took care of her and everything, regardless, out of guilt and all that stuff. And my mother's wasn't a very good person, in the sense that she was loving. She doesn't know how to express love. She's got a lot of mental issues. I think there's some schizophrenia, and definitely sociopath, because she doesn't know how to love. It's not in her DNA.
And this probably stems back to something that happened to her.
Oh, absolutely. I learned that. Well, here's how it made me think along your lines. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a psychologist. I wasn't his patient, but as a colleague. And I told him about my mother. And I asked him, hey, what do you make of her behavior? Because she would talk to herself in the mirror for hours and hours, almost like in a trance, imagining things, just looking in the mirror. I would watch her as a kid just talk to herself and act out scenarios in her head, almost like she's telling somebody off that wasn't there. And then I told him about this, and when he said, dude, your mother might have been a victim. I was like, why do you say that? He goes, because usually when women are violated, especially in a violent way, usually they describe it as an out-of-body experience. And that disconnect from reality and in their fantasy is a byproduct of that particular incident that happened to them. So I did manage to sit her down one day, and it took a lot of prying, but I got it out of her. Yeah, it was a cousin that did it to her when she was a preteen. My mom was a very beautiful woman when she was young. Apparently, from what I heard, when she was about 12 or 13, she was one of those that had the body of a woman, at a young age, and which made her a target, especially in the impoverished environment that she was in, where people tend to not have the best motives.
Right.
Even if it is a family member. Unfortunately for her, she took that on me and my sisters. And my sister, I had two older half sisters. My mother had a first marriage. One, she was the scapegoat, Kim. She got kicked out and moved back to Florida and left. The other one, she was smart. She actually, when she graduated high school, she had some half brothers she could live with up in Maryland, and she moved in with him, and she didn't look back. And as far as I know, she's living a pretty good life. She's got, a good husband, a good provider. Her kids are, off to college. So great things, man. Me, on the other hand, it sent me on a trajectory of all kinds of bad decisions, right? Where I was using substances. Alcohol. Alcohol was always a constant for me because it was the most accessible. You can just go to the street and grab it. It was always a constant. Of course, there was the harder stuff that was available as well. Cocaine, that was probably out of all the hard. There was an ecstasy moment, but I think that was more of a 90s thing when the raves were going on and everything. But my particular favorite hard drug was cocaine because it made me happy. Something I never had, something that always eluded me. And that was one that would get out of control from time to time. Never could have a healthy relationship. I was never equipped for a healthy relationship. And, I just didn't, it just wasn't in my DNA. And sometimes it makes me resentful, when I look back, and I just feel angry that I wasn't put on a good trajectory. Because my father, he had a family before I was born. I have a brother and sister, a half brother and sister, much older than me, and they grew up with him. And they grew up up in Rhode Island. That's where they're all at.
Right.
They got the father who raised them, provided for them. My brother, he got to go to Embry-Riddle, become a pilot, have a career at United Airlines. Because my dad would take him up in his helicopter when he would spray pesticides. So my dad was a potato farmer. My brother got that love.
Mentioned that, right? Yeah.
So yeah, so they got that. So my older siblings on my dad's side, they got that good thing, and I got left with this monster. You know what I mean? I just felt like I was the outcast, the out one. But after all, it was Jesus who came to earth for the invisible people. He didn't come for the people who had it good.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not to say he doesn't. He has it for the people who are, he's open to people who have it good.
He wants us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but he definitely he came definitely he looks after the meek and the humble and the people of moderate means and whatnot. I mean, certainly he had a purpose in your life, because look at you now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is by the grace of God, I'm still here, and I want to, but I don't want to be okay, I'm still here. Everlasting life for me is the cherry on top of the sundae, which is cool. Right. I can finally be with a family, because I've never had family. But I'm not talking about be with family who deceased, because I really didn't have a relationship with people in my family. So, but a real family, these souls that I'll meet, that'll accept me for who I am. That's what I envision heaven kind of being like. But for now, I don't want to be like, okay, I accepted Christ. Life is better for me. I want to be able to give it away to other people and bring them to Christ,
Amen.
That's what I want. I want to disciple and let them know, hey, before you get baptized, better be ready. Because it's like in Ephesians, you got to put on that armor of Christ. I never understood what that meant until I got baptized. I wasn't given that armor. I went in there like a fool and just went and got baptized. You
understand it now, though, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. I wish someone would have told me, warn me.
Should have called me.
I didn't know. We were out of touch. So it's like I didn't know, and I was.
Well, that's actually ironic, though, because when you and I when we got back in touch after all that time, and we just kind of picked up just like where we left off, and it was like you had said that it was I forget what our conversation was that day, but it was a conversation that you needed to have. That's how God works,
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. It is my hope that I can use my talents and my gifts, whether through video editing, production, that I could help grow your channel, because you got an inspirational story to tell. As far as how you came about, I'll let you tell that. But yeah, man, it was pretty bad. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's a struggle sometimes still. And like I said, when I got baptized, I accepted Christ. He came at me, man, and I did give in to sin. It was almost like my baptism didn't mean nothing. And like I said, I wish I would have known about the armor of Christ. I wish I would have had somebody who had told me, watch out, or whatever. But what can you do when you don't have, that in front of you? But God puts people in your life. He put you back into my life. There's various people there that could support you, that he puts in your life, that could lead you on the path and get right with God. Every night I ask him, what do you want me for? What do you want me for? And and sometimes I get frustrated. I read the book of Job, and it's like, it ain't all peaches and cream. Like I said, when you take on that role of being, a child of God, that book is very dark, and it's not a motivational book in the sense that we would think, and understanding that your trials and tribulations, your life, what you're called for, is part of a greater purpose. And that is a purpose you may not even see in your lifetime, that'll be revealed to you in the next, hopefully. You know what I mean? What your purpose was. Your purpose doesn't mean you're going to go become a CEO of a company now that you accepted Christ. It just means that your life, you know what I mean?
A lot of people think that, right?
Yeah, a lot of people do think that, and it's like, your life is going to mean something. You may not see. It's like when Moses was when it was revealed to Moses that he would not see the promised land, his generation, but the next one would. Remember that?
Right. Absolutely.
So it's sort of like that. When you become a child of Christ, your life will mean something in God's will. You may not ever be conscious of it.
Well,
But
there's,
you know,
even in my own life. I mean, I'm sure there's people, where I planted the seeds and or maybe I watered them a little bit, but I didn't actually get to see them sprout. And hopefully they're out there, carrying on. But I mean,
right.
but I've had instances where I've evangelized to people and and discipleship and whatnot that I've seen I've seen it happen, and it's a very. I mean, obviously, I recognize that it's not me; it's the Holy Spirit working through me. It's
Mhm.
never you. I mean, it's always God using you as that tool. To whatever your part is. Whatever He has you for, and I'm glad. Glad for whatever He uses me for.
And that's why I always ask him every night. And it's usually times where I'm confused and I don't know where my life is going. And I always ask him, what do you want me for? Because I'm not the assertive type of Christian where I'm out there with the placards and the bullhorn. That's just not me, but
I
I'm
mean,
willing to
either.
do it,
I'm very shy, but it's funny, and I think you're the same way. Once you get on a roll, you're fine. It's just getting on that roll.
Yeah. Yeah. So, whatever we could do, to do his will. And the next part of that is having enough faith that he's going to provide for you in one way or another. It may not be in the way you want him to provide for you, but he will, as long as you're obedient, he'll guide you from room to room.
Right. Amen. And Eric, I found, and quite frankly, with all that's happened, in my life, in the past, 10 years or whatever, I mean, I've made and lost, a lot of money. And one thing I figured out, money definitely, I mean, is not the end all be all for happiness, because,
No, it's not.
I've had plenty of it. I've made it, I've lost it. Never made me happy,
Mm-hmm.
and I have probably less monetarily now than I've ever had in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, God has provided me with a great wife. I've got my, I've got my son, I've got my grandkids, I've got stepkids. He's just been faithful. He gave me my health back. Eric, I wasn't in that great a shape when we were, hanging out, when we were working together and whatnot. And, during my late wife's illness, and after that, I really had gone down the tubes big time. With the weight gain and just my health, my blood pressure, everything was terrible. And what God has done in my life, like you said, not to be, how would you put it, Bobby Beautiful or whatever, but for me to be able to raise my grandkids, for me to be able to get up every day and go to work, for me to be able to be a husband, and and be able to do things and be physically able to do things that I couldn't even walk 20 feet before without being out of breath. And
Right.
now I'm by the grace of God, I'm in good physical condition, great physical condition, and I've got energy, that I haven't had since I was in my 20s and 30s. And to me, that's a a godly restoration, almost a resurrection for me. You know what I mean? To bring me back from pretty close to the dead, to get me back where I am now. And so I'm grateful for it. So I know part of my purpose is to be here to raise these kids, to raise my grandchildren, and to be there for my son, and my stepchildren. Um, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing what God can do. You just when you put him in the driver's seat, there's really no limits. And I'm not talking about, again, not talking about monetarily. I'm just talking about true happiness. And I'm not saying you can't be happy with money. I guess I'm sure you can be, but I mean, for me, it never really clicked like that. But I can honestly say I'm very happy in my life now that God has given me. I wake up blessed every day. I'm part of a wonderful church, got a great pastor. Just a lot of great people around me. I'm blessed to have you back in my life. I mean, it's just amazing, you know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It definitely has its rewards, you know. Yeah. So that's where I'm at now, on that. And I would just I would recommend anybody they call it they call it the broad road and the narrow road, I think, for a reason. You know, I mean, the thing is I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and we didn't believe in the Trinity. So grace and faith was not emphasized in that religion. It was very works right. What do they call it? Works righteousness based sort of thing, where you have to do certain things in order.
Like pretty much every other religion in the world, besides, I mean, Christianity, isn't a religion, obviously. You know, I mean, as such, people call Christianity a religion, but it's not. It's faith, and it's by grace and by faith. It has nothing to do with works. Although, faith without works is dead, because but it's kind of in that order,
But the thing is that with my theory with it being the narrow road is because, it's like what Martin Luther discovered, that it's through faith that we're given grace, not works, when he was under an apostate form of Christianity.
Right.
And so what that meant was, by your faith growing and growing, you don't have to worry about adhering to a list of don't do's like, the Mosaic law. You're no longer a slave to the Mosaic law curse. When you have faith, or at least when I have faith, even if it's a little bit, because I'm not going to sit here and say I have the greatest faith, but even if it's a little bit, I find myself, not to make myself out to be a saint, but I find myself doing the next best thing almost second nature.
Right.
I don't have to think about it as much. And it's almost a mystery. And
well, you hit the nail right on the head. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And I think when you have to have faith in the Lord, you have to give your care over to Him for all your affairs, and that's a tall order.
Yeah, you can't pick and choose, and we all suffer from that.
And that's
what we want to let Him into, and what we want to keep Him out of.
Yeah, and I think that's why they call it the narrow road, because it is a tall order. Most of us want to play God. Yeah, I'll let God handle this, but I need to handle this on my own. And I think that's why it's a narrow road, because it's a tall order to have 110% faith in Him to govern your affairs in everything. Because very few people can do that. We want to take that.
I'm still learning, Eric. I'm still learning. I mean, I find myself, having to just kind of let things go. It's like, okay, yeah, old Ron would want to, keep that to myself, and deal with it in Ron's way. You know what I mean? As opposed to giving it over to Christ and doing it His way. You know what I mean? And the thing is, you've got that internal battle, and when you're not doing it right. Especially now. I mean, I think you're at a point in your walk where you're aware. You know what I mean? When you're trying to keep something to yourself, or maybe like I pray about it every day. Every day, I confess my sins and I repent. And I try to do it every day anyway. I'm not perfect in that either, but I definitely find myself, I'll ask God to search me. God, point out to me, things that I'm doing that aren't, the way you want me to do them, and let me know. And He does. He really does. I mean, no sooner do I pray that most of the time than a couple of little things will pop into my head that that I need to work on. And I'm grateful for that. Because that's what keeps me going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's something that's an integral part of my life. It's through the ups and downs, maintaining that faith. I mean, yeah, you can, when you're on that pink cloud, it's always easy to have that faith, but when you're down, man, that's where you got to lean in, so So yeah, man. So when it's all said and done, he's there. He's going to be there no matter what. Even if you don't think he's going to be there, he's going to be there.
Well, that's the thing too. There's plenty of times, where and I haven't been going through this lately. Lately, I kind of like sense him there all the time, more or less. You know what I mean? I just feel like he's always beside me. But there's been times in my life where I'm like, where are you? It's like, you just feel like, the thing is, it's not him that walked away. It's you. It's that's he's there. You just got to reach out with your right hand and grab on. Sometimes it's tough to do that. Sometimes people just they get off on a tangent. Whatever it is that pulls you away from God, whatever the example of the golden calf, false idols, it's really easy for us to grab onto golden calves in our life, whether it's, monetary things, whatever it is you're into, you know what I mean? Whether it's, sports or gambling, or it could be, just, things of this world, that attract us and pull us away from God. We always tend to try to, fill that spot with something else, and you have to keep reminding yourself, hey, that this isn't where it's at, because that's where we try to get our happiness from,
Yeah.
and it's very easy to get knocked off course like that,
Very easy, especially in a world that's changing at a rapid pace the way it is,
right.
With technology, politics. Yeah. So that's the thing, when everything changes, that he's your rock, what I mean? God is still God. And I go to scripture. I treat scripture like I never understood the whole concept of reading the Bible. I always looked at it like, okay, these are people who existed long before me, stories and incidents and events that happened long before me. Okay, I don't get the point. But I learned through actually a Charles Stanley sermon that when you read the Bible, you should read it like it's the Word of God, like it's God speaking to you. And I know most people get that, but I didn't get that. So now I look at a lot. I read scripture. I read it a lot differently than I do now. I look at it almost like the father figure that I never had. So, so in this life, as long as I'm doing His will, I understand that it may not always be perfect. I'm going to go to scripture and let Him speak to me, and pray to Him at night. It's not always going to be easy, in peaches and cream, but I hope that when this life ends, it is revealed to me where I fit in His plan. If it's not revealed to me in this lifetime, so you're good. So anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, listen. With that being said, I'd like to pick this up again. I think we're at about almost 45 minutes right now. I'm thinking maybe we could do a second part of this.
Okay.
I mean, I think you have a lot more story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for right now, maybe we'll just cut it here. You can edit this out or do whatever you want. But we could, we'll get back to it.
Okay.
Maybe we'll just post it in 2 segments. What do you think about that?
Could work out like that, a part 1 and part 2. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think you've got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, and I think there's a lot more that we can kind of dig out.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, when it comes to like all kinds of things, language, the occult, all that stuff. So if you ever want to dive into that kind of stuff,
yeah, I mean, you've been through a lot, so I think that there's a lot that can be told here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. Well,
now, I'm not promoting the occult, but
no, obviously,
Yeah, so.
but you have a unique perspective.
Oh yeah, I know a lot about it. You
Right.
know, so
Right. So it's not like you're a stranger. You can actually there's I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that probably have dabbled in that or are still involved in it. And you can maybe provide some insight for them.
absolutely, absolutely. You know, when it comes down, the occult is what it boils down to is you playing God and you declaring your independence from Him. That's really what it is. And
Right.
we'll get more, and that's for another episode, I think. So,
Absolutely. All right. Almost. Well,
yeah.
then we will definitely do another episode then.